I was standing in my shower, fully lathered in a soap that promised the invigorating scent of alpine freshness. The kind that makes you feel like you've been airlifted straight into the Swiss Alps. I was belting out the chorus to Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer with a passion that would make even John Bon Jovi proud. I was mid-dash, we were halfway there, when it happened, something I still don't understand to this day. The water-me glorious, scalding hot partner in this rock opera sputtered. Not a slow decline. No, it was a violent hacking cough. The powerful stream faltered, choked, and then died with a final, pathetic dribble. My first thought wasn't rational. It wasn't, oh, the city must be working on a water main. It wasn't, did I forget to pay the bill? No, the first thought that hit my brain was a single word. Carol. Carol Peterson, the president of the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association, the self-appointed sheriff of our little suburban kingdom. A woman who seemed to derive a special kind of satisfaction from the petty rules of HOA life. You could smell her coming from a mile away, not just because of the overpowering scent of lavender air fresheners, but because you knew she'd be carrying a clipboard with rules on it, rules about everything. The exact shade of your lawn, the size of your mailbox, the number of petunias in your flower bed. Carol was the kind of person who would measure the height of your grass with a ruler and deduct points for the wrong green. That's exactly what she'd done to me. My lush, vibrant lawn, the one I'd lovingly tended to, had been deemed too cheerful, too emerald. Apparently, it didn't align with the Oakwood Estates' approved color palette. The violation notices started pouring in about 3 weeks ago. The first one was printed on a thick piece of cardstock that looked like it could withstand a bullet. Violation notice, Bylaw 23, Section C. Your lawn has been deemed non-compliant. Please rectify within 14 days. Attached was a 2-inch square of the color I could only describe as hospital green. It was the color of bland despair, like a corporate office lobby in a business that was just about to file for bankruptcy. I thought it was a joke at first. Surely, someone was messing with me. I laughed, genuinely laughed. But that was before the second notice. It was even worse. Carol had escalated things. She wasn't just taking passive-aggressive shots anymore. Now, she was laying down threats. Let's be good neighbors, Frank. It read, accompanied by another cheerful reminder of my non-compliant lawn. I hadn't taken her seriously, though. Not yet. I just mowed my lawn again, watered it, and waited. I figured she'd fine me $20, I'd refuse to pay, and we'd engage in some long-winded war of angry letters, the kind that never ends but never really hurts anyone. That's when I made the mistake of underestimating her. Carol had taken the war beyond the realm of petty fines. It wasn't just about the lawn anymore. It was personal. And as I stood there, dripping wet in my towel, shampoo stinging my eyes, and soap congealing on my skin in my silent shower, I realized something terrifying. She hadn't just fined me. Carol had escalated things. She'd shut off my water. My glorious water. All because my grass didn't match her little swatch of approved beige. I wrapped my towel around me, feeling its inadequacy, and stormed outside, still soaked. There she was, in her perfectly coordinated powder blue tracksuit, kneeling down in my flower bed, measuring the height of my petunias with a small metal ruler. She looked up at me as I approached, her face an eerie mask of polite surprise. Frank, she said, her voice as crisp as fresh paper. Is everything all right? You're dripping. There's no water, Carol, I growled. Fancy that. Any idea what could have happened? Her smile didn't waver. She stood up, brushed an invisible speck of dirt off her knee, and then, in a tone that could only be described as triumphant, she held up a small, T-shaped metal key. Yup, 17B, Section 4C. She recited smoothly, like she'd done it 100 times before. Failure to comply with documented aesthetic violations grants the HOA permission to incentivize compliance through the suspension of municipal services. My jaw dropped as I processed her words. She had the key to shut off my water, a private valve that the city had installed during some long-forgotten plumbing upgrade. I never thought in a million years that the HOA, or worse, Carol, would have access to it. But there she was, smug as could be, holding the key to my misery. You shut off my water, I said, disbelieving. All because you don't like the color of my grass. The board takes aesthetic harmony very seriously, Frank, she said, turning back to her flowers. inspecting them with a casual glance as if I wasn't standing there, drenched and furious. You'll get your water back within 24 hours, just as soon as your lawn is in full compliance. I stood there in stunned silence in front of my emerald lawn. I was trapped, waterless, and I was about to lose my mind. But then, something in me shifted. A quiet rage, a need for revenge. I retreated into my house, eyes scanning the garage like a hunter looking for his prey. And that's when I found it. A dusty gray toolbox. A relic from a municipal surplus auction I'd attended years ago. I'd forgotten about it, but now it felt like fate. Inside was everything I'd ever need. Giant brass fittings, a massive wrench, Teflon tape. And there it was, sitting in the middle, like Excalibur waiting to be wielded, a 5-sided socket wrench made specifically for fire hydrants. Carol wanted to play with valves? Fine. I'd play with something far bigger. I hauled the toolbox outside, my heart pounding in my chest as the smell of freshly cut grass mixed with the alpine scent of my soap. I approached the fire hydrant at the corner of my property, eyes narrowing with purpose. I had no clue what was going to happen next, but I didn't care. I connected my garden hoses to the hydrant, one by one, each one snaking across my lawn until they reached the outdoor spigot. And then, I turned the wrench. At first, nothing. But then, a deep, rumbling groan echoed beneath the earth. The pipes screamed as the pressure built. I could hear the water rushing into the hoses, transforming them from limp to rigid in an instant. And then it happened. The sprinkler system went wild. My lawn became a battlefield. 6 powerful jets of water shot 50 feet into the air, forming a brilliant, shining rainbow as they hammered down on Carol's perfect, beige house. I stood there, victorious, watching the water cascade down her windows, flooding her pristine flower beds. I had targeted her with military precision, and it was glorious. From my living room window, I could see her face pressed against the curtain, staring at the disaster unfolding before her eyes. But I didn't wait for her to retaliate. I grabbed a cup of coffee and sat on my front porch like a king surveying his domain, knowing full well the authorities were coming. And sure enough, they did. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. The police arrived first. Sergeant Miller, whose mustache seemed to hold all the weight of suburban misdeeds, and Officer Davies, who was still trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. "Morning," Miller said, his voice dry as dust. "Going to guess this aquatic spectacle has something to do with you?" I shrugged, taking a sip of my coffee. "Beautiful day for it, right?" Officer Davies tried to go all by the book, but I could see he was lost. Miller, however, was a man who'd seen it all. He didn't even need to ask. He just watched the scene unfold, his face slowly morphing into an appreciative smile. But then came Carol, storming across the yard, soaked to the bone. "He's a menace," she screeched. "He's flooding my property." "Ma'am," Miller said, holding up his hand. "Let me handle this." I went inside for a moment, grabbed my violation notices, and handed them over to the cops. I told them everything. The HOA violations, Carol shutting off my water, and her smug, infuriating smile when she held up that key. As I finished my story, something in Miller's face shifted. The resignation melted away, replaced by something that looked a lot like delight. "Hold on, let me get this straight," Miller said, shaking his head in disbelief. "She turned off your water because she doesn't like the color of your grass? That's the long and short of it, Sergeant." Miller turned to Carol, his tone hardening slightly. "Ma'am, the HOA isn't the law. What you did could be vandalism. You can't just cut off someone's water supply over a landscaping dispute." I could see Carol squirming as Miller laid down the law. But just then, another siren cut through the air. A fire truck, and out stepped Chief Evans. "Who's the genius?" he bellowed. I raised my hand. "That would be me, Chief." Evans wasn't amused, but he knew how to get things done. He looked at the fire hydrant, shook his head, and said, "Don't ever touch my hydrants again." I could see the smirk on his face as he handed me back the violation notice. "But if you ever decide to sell that wrench, give me a call." And with that, he left. Carol, defeated, went back to her house, her smug grin completely gone. But the war wasn't over. I was going to get my revenge the only way I knew how. The only way that mattered. By making sure she could never touch me again. So, I called Grizzly Drilling and got the permits. And one morning, a giant rig showed up in my front yard. Bill and Dale drilled right in the center of my lawn, creating a private well and oasis in the middle of Oakwood Estates. The fire hydrant, the water, Carol, they could all go to hell. Now, when I water my lawn, it's with a sense of quiet, untouchable power. Carol's rules? Irrelevant. Her HOA? Useless. My lawn is a defiant emerald green, and every drop of water that touches it is my own. I'm finally free. And if you think I didn't win, well, I'll let you decide. What do you think? Was I in the right? Or was Carol just doing her job? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share if you think some petty HOA rules deserve to be broken.